is 3 o'clock. Welcome to our special council meeting, August 26, 2022. This meeting has been called for the following purposes: announcement, recognition, Jasmel Cormon, status Brampton U, status council directed RFP, park location for Gita Park naming, the Brampton Celebrity Hockey Classic for Easter Seals, the Brampton Senior Games 55 Plus hockey team, St. Elias, the Prophet Ukrainian Catholic Church, assistance request for Ukrainian refugees, ceremonial street naming for Elizabeth Street North, Cheryl's Place, Moncton Circle, park update, minutes planning development committee meeting August 22nd, 2022, council meeting calendar, staff report request for full-time labor employment staff complement recommendation. Under council's meeting rules, no other business can be considered at special meeting. We will begin this meeting with the city clerk calling the roll for attendance at today's meeting.
Members, I will call your name. Please indicate your presence for today's special meeting. Councillor Dillon. Councillor Dillon. I didn't see him in the session, but I'll come back to him. Councillor Singh is present in person. Councillor Fortini.
Present, Peter.
Thank you. Councillor Medeiros.
Here.
Thank you. Councillor Bowman.
Present.
Is present in person. Councillor Paleshi. Present in person. Councillor Willens.
I'm here, Peter.
Thank you. Councillor Basante. Present in person. Councillor Santos.
Present.
Is present in person. Councillor Dillon. Councillor Dillon doesn't appear to be present at the moment, and Mayor Brown, so there are 9 members present.
We have a motion moved by Councillor Bowman and seconded by Councillor Singh to approve the agenda.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, just to advise that there is an added delegation for today's agenda. It was emailed out to members of council, so it will be 4.1 from Michael Gagnon, and this is in regards to item 5.10 on today's agenda, the minutes from the Planning and Development Committee meeting of August 22nd.
Okay. Instead of seeking a recorded vote for this item, I'll ask, is there anyone opposed to this motion? Otherwise, your vote will count in the affirmative. Hearing.
Sorry, I'd like.
Hello?
Yeah, Mayor Brown, I just requested to speak.
Sorry, who is this?
It's Councillor Medeiros.
Okay, yeah.
Yeah, sorry, regarding that additional delegation, Mr. Gagnon reached out to me as a local area councillor, asking if we can bring up his delegation at the beginning of the meeting, because I think they have a heritage person as well who would like to speak to their application. So I was wondering if we can reverse the order, if we can bring up the minutes to the first part of the agenda.
Yeah, so we'll move the delegation up to the beginning.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. Anyone opposed? Hearing none, motion carries. Our next item is item 5.1, announcement, recognition of Jasmel Cormon. Oh, sorry, did I miss that? Oh, declarations of a conflict of interest. Does anyone have a conflict of interest on the Municipal Conflict of Interest Act? Hearing none, the clerk will so note. Our next item is 5.1, announcement, recognition of Jasmel Cormon. Oh, where's the oh, it's right, to 4. You're right, sorry. Thank you, Councillor Flashy. Okay, Michael Gagnon.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, Michael Gagnon is joining us virtually. Michael, you should be in the session now. You have up to 5 minutes to address council on this matter. So, Mr. Gagnon, you can proceed.
Okay, good. Thank you. Good afternoon, as I said, Mr. Mayor and members of council. Michael Gagnon, appearing on behalf of the registered...
They called, we can pick them up around 4, after 4.
Sorry, somebody's microphone is on. Apologies, Mr. Gagnon. Please proceed.
Oh, that's okay. That's okay. I'm speaking this afternoon on behalf of the registered owners of a number of properties on John Street, specifically number 22, 24, 26, 28, and 32 John Street. And as you will recall, at this past Monday's Planning Committee meeting, there was a statutory public meeting, and a very thorough presentation was made by the Planning Department. We heard from some members of the public, and we made some comments ourselves. So first of all, I wish to thank you and your staff for having scheduled that to the public meeting on Monday. In relation to that application, which is proposing a 39-story mixed-use apartment, student housing, and commercial project, which would replace the older structures that occupy the site, there are a couple of issues that are of concern to our client. The first item has to do with the heritage impact assessment our clients have prepared and filed. And the second issue has to deal with the status of the application and the planning department suggesting that it is an incomplete application. So maybe the first thing I'd like to do, with your indulgence, is have our heritage consultant, Mark Dreger, basically focus in on the work that he's done, which he believes is in accordance with city requirements for an heritage impact assessment, and then the conclusions he has reached. And that will lead us nicely into a few comments I have to make about the status of the application relative to its completeness or incompleteness. And if we could do that, I think that would give council a very thorough understanding of the issues that are sort of vexing the application right now. So Mark, if you are available, could you please focus very briefly on the process and the highlights of your report?
Hi, can everybody hear me okay?
Yes.
Hi, so yes, so we've, my name's Mark Dreger, this is Jason Trula from ATA Architects. We've been working in Brampton for 30 years on heritage impact statements. Our principal, Alex Temporelli, developed a system within Brampton. We've been working with over 100 projects basically. And we went through an initial process of a response from Heritage. They sent us a response. We responded back with our comments. And we see no reason why this process should be held up. We've followed their instructions, which is sort of typical in a situation like this. So think we've given a really good report, very accurate report. And we'd love for this application to be accepted by the City of Brampton.
So thank you, Mark, and Mr. Mayor and members of council. The long and the short of it, with respect to the Heritage Impact Report related to the 5 units that currently occupy the site, is very simple. We filed a Heritage Impact Assessment along with over a dozen other technical reports. 2 of the reports that were filed were tagged for additional comments to be provided. One was the Heritage Impact Assessment, which Mark and his office have responded to. They have made a supplementary submission. And the other issue was a wind assessment. So after some debate and discussion with staff, there was an agreement on what would be prepared in regards to the wind assessment. It would be a 2-stage process. We complied with that arrangement and we filed what they call a desktop wind analysis. And so we were very surprised to receive a letter recently that suggested that the application was still incomplete. And the importance of getting a complete application status has to do with the requirements of the Planning Act. And I've been laboring over it for the last few days, the Planning Act, to make sure that, in fact, that we've interpreted it correctly. In the 35 years that I've been practicing, and since the new regulations under Bill 109 came out, this is the first application where we have had a municipality suggest that we have an incomplete application after filing an extensive volume of documents. And I filed a letter yesterday with the planning department asking that they grant us that complete application status. We have been to a statutory public meeting, and I think that if the councillors who've been dealing with our office for the last, 5, 10, 35 years, if the one thing you've come to expect from us is very thorough submissions. So this afternoon, we are coming before you frustrated that we have not been granted complete application status, requesting that council consider providing direction to planning staff to grant it to this application. And secondly, to let you know that on the issue of heritage, we've hired a competent expert in ATA Architects. One of their projects is Alderley, which is a city project, a beautiful restoration. They know what they're doing. We will be appearing before the Heritage Board in the very near future to hear what they have to say about that report. And it is not uncommon for applicants and planning staff in your municipality or any
So
municipality that
Michael, it's Peter, you're past your 5 minutes, so if you can please wrap up.
I shall. Thank you, Mr. Clerk. My last comment is it's not unusual for planning staff and other technical staff of the city to have a difference of opinion on technical reports. But what is unusual is for the planning department to suggest an application isn't complete because we don't agree on the content of those reports. So we are seeking direction from council, please, to planning staff to reconsider the position and grant us complete application status. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Councillor Basante.
No questions, Mayor, but perhaps later on when we deal with the item, I'd be happy to move that staff continue to work present the material to the Heritage Board, and that we can consider the application complete as it is.
Okay, delegation moved by Councillor Basante, seconded by Councillor Santos. Anyone opposed? Hearing none, motion carries.
Thank you very much.
This takes us to item 5.1, announcement regards to Jasmel Kaur Mon. And I just want to note that Jasmel Kaur Mon is not here today. We want to organize the police and fire all at the same time. This is in regards to the mother who came out and saved the son. It was all over the news. The journalist who was being savagely attacked. And in wards two, a resident of wards 2 and 6, Councillor Plushy just reminded me, and we want to recognize her for her courage. She saved her son's life in the midst of something as horrible as that. It was beautiful to see the mother's love save her son. And so we're going to recognize her today, but I've actually been told that unless council directs it, protocol can't help with a recognition like this. So I just have a motion that protocol make arrangements to appropriately recognize Jasmel Kaur Mon in conjunction with Brampton Fire and the Peel Police. Moved by the ward councillor, Councillor Plushy. Seconded by Councillor Willens. Anyone opposed? Hearing none, motion carries. For our next item, we're starting that in camera, Peter, is that correct?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, if that's the will of council, is to move in camera to deal with, I believe it's 8.1, which is related to item 5.2 on the agenda. Council can decide to do that. There is a public version of the report that's available online, and there is closed session information that's been provided confidentially to council.
Okay. How long do you require?
If the will of council is to go into closed session, does council wish to go into close for both items on the agenda?
Sure. Okay.
Then through you, Mr. Mayor, to members of council, I think 15 minutes is required.
Okay.
So the motion is on the screen. We'll need a mover and seconder to
Okay.
move into closed session.
Okay, moved by Councillor Plushy, second by Councillor Singh, and we'll see everyone in, can you do 10 minutes?
I can try, yes.
Okay, 3:23. Paul Morrison said we're going to be done in an hour and a half today, an hour and 45. Opposed? Hearing none, motion carries.
Mr. Mayor, just before we get started at 4:03, just members present. In the chambers is the mayor, Councillor Singh, Councillor Bowman, Councillor Paleshi, Councillor Vasante, Councillor Santos, and members present online are Councillor Willens, Councillor Fortini, and Councillor Maderos.
Okay. 20 seconds before we go back in. While we're here, I'd just like to recognize, I see we have with us the Chair of the Police Services Board, Ron Chatha. Thank you for the good work on the report today from the Police Services Board. I saw that. I see former Councillor John Sanderson here. Welcome to City Hall. Okay, it is 4:03. We're back in session.
Mr. Mayor, just to report out from closed session, I'll just report out for item 8.1, security of the property of the municipality or local board, status of the Brampton U investigation. Information was considered in closed session and received, and no direction was given. 8.2, proposed or pending acquisition or disposition of land and the position plan procedure criteria or instruction to be applied to any negotiations carried on or to be carried on by or on behalf of the municipality or local board. In regard to item 5.9, Moncton Circle Park update, information was received and no direction was given. We can proceed back in agenda order. The next item is the Brampton U investigation update.
Okay. You've got both motions? Brampton U report be removed, that all MOUs signed with post-secondary institutions be released, that allocated budget for Brampton U not be exceeded, that any further work be ceased, and the report received. Councillor Vasante.
Thank you very much, Mayor. Yes, I just want to speak to the redactions. Earlier, we had received a copy of this document from Froze, and we, of course, received the document in its entirety without any redactions, and then it was published on the revised agenda with some redactions. And we believe that it is important that those redacted pieces are made public. And so that is the reason for us to have in this motion that the information that was blacked out should be seen by members of the public. Further, Mr. Mayor, through you, there was on page 8 some commentary in the report with respect to MOUs, which it says here MOUs were not negotiated, and that is inconsistent with, I think, the council and information that we received, because we even put out press releases speaking to the existence of MOUs that were signed as work progressed to develop the model for Brampton U. And we, of course, at the time were very excited about those MOUs because it was, in fact, good progress. And so we're asking here in this motion that those MOUs be made public, subject to solicitor review, to make sure that there is nothing in there that really is proprietary. But we would like the members of the public to see those MOUs if they so choose to look at this matter further. And that's I'll let other members of council speak to the other items then. Okay. Thank you.
Councillor Bowman.
Thank you very much to you, Mr. Mayor. In terms of receiving the full report That full report, Mr. CAO, is scheduled to come back when?
We were hoping in the next couple of weeks, and that would be pending approval to continue with the process.
Okay, so if we do not continue with the process, will they be doing a report and coming here to report to us in person?
Through the chair, I wouldn't be able to confirm that. From my understanding, it was the expectation that they would come with a full completed report once they've done all their interviews.
And how many interviews do they have left?
From my understanding, there are 3 interviews left.
Are they important interviews?
From my understanding, one of the main interviews would be with the counselor in question, and 2 interviews with the consultants.
Okay. So we're putting a motion forward now that stops any more payments, so I imagine that will also stop all interviews as well.
Through the chair, that's correct.
Okay. I'm having trouble with this one, and Councillor Santos, I don't know your position, whether you want to be interviewed or not, so I'm not going to talk about that. But I don't think the report is complete without getting all sides to this story. We've been working on this a very, very long time. It's been years now that we've been questioning this, and I found out this week that the budget has gone up considerably since when we talked about it. But I cannot support this motion and stop everything, not knowing if the report is going to come forward, not knowing if the investigator is going to be here in person to answer our questions. So I'm having a real issue with this, because this, to me, what we have is just an interim, it's not even a report, it's just an interim document that they're telling us what they did, who they've interviewed, and some preliminary findings that they've found. It was written on the 17th, so it may have even been written before that, but sent to us. So I don't think that everything is in there that is going to come out. So listen, for me, it's been a long, long time. I'm not prepared to just give up on this and say what you see is what you get right here. So I'm not going to be supporting shutting this down and hoping they come back with a report. Thanks.
Councilor Medeiros?
Yeah, thank you through you, Mayor. I guess just for clarification, and again, just seeing this motion now, my understanding, and Peter, maybe you can correct me if I'm wrong. So direction was given that a final report be brought to council. And I guess what this motion does it stop the final report from coming to council? Because what we received today was an interim report. They've identified 3 outstanding interviews that they would like to complete. Doesn't that go contrary to the motion?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, to members of council, the original direction through a resolution of council from, I believe it was May, was to undertake a review. It didn't go into particular detail on the timing and when the reports were coming back. I think that sort of evolved as the review was undertaken. My understanding of this motion, if it were to carry today, it's clause 4 that's the important one, that says that any further work be ceased, and the draft report, which is really the interim letter, as I understand it, that's presented before council today, to be received, so no further work would be undertaken. That's the way I interpret this motion that's on the floor, but unless I've misinterpreted, that's the way I see council's proposal.
Yeah, and go ahead, Mr. Mayor.
Yeah, if I could just answer to clarify, yes, the clerk's interpretation is correct, and it's based on the CO saying this is largely the final report.
Yeah, I don't know. CEO, are you saying that this is the final report? Because my understanding that we were going to have a final report come to council, I think sometime in September. And what this is an interim report. It's identified three people that they still need to interview, and three real sort of key people who, are very much part of, the discussions and very relevant to the investigations. But I think what I'm having a trouble trying to understand is that this is not a report per se. This is what it is an update. And, what I would hope is that, my understanding is that a fulsome report would come with, appendixes, with everything. What you have is just a snapshot, a summary. But we don't even have, the documentation that comes with it, the appendices, to substantiate some of those comments. And obviously, the folks who prepared this interim report expected full well to come in September to provide a fulsome report, which would have the appendices, which would have those statements, which would have copies of whatever copies they have, because I think this is part of a complete report that comes forward. This is not my understanding. So CEO, correct me if I'm wrong, is this in your understanding, and not to put you on the spot, but this is not what was expected. This is a summary.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, this version of the report is an update version of the report. Because we had got to a balance of money that had exceeded what we had expected, they gave us a clarity report to work done so far. It's our anticipation that they had 3 more interviews to do and a final written piece to section 3, the governance piece, and that was going to conclude the report. So our expectations is the report is very much as you see it, plus what the 3 pieces I had just said that they wanted, 4 pieces that they wanted to add, 3 interviews in the governance conclusion.
And through you,
Sorry,
Mr.
Councillor Medeiros. I'm just
Yep.
sorry. I've just been advised that there may be an issue with the audio. I just want to confirm that there are people on the live stream that are not hearing any audio. Just want to make sure that it is being captured.
Pierre, I've been getting texts from media. They can't hear nothing on the audio.
Okay. Members of council, I'm just going to say we just pause for a moment just to confirm. Okay, it sounds like it is going out, being broadcast over the internet, and it is working fine. Yeah. So, sorry, Councillor Medeiros, please proceed.
Thank you. Again, I guess, Paul, then the appendices and everything, all that supporting documentation, would that not be part of a report?
Through the chair, that would be part of the report, correct?
So in this interim summary, there's nothing there. So so my expectation, and I would assume everyone's expectation to receive a report, the report is incomplete. So wouldn't we want all that supporting documentation as part of a final report?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, it really comes down to council's desire to move forward to continue with the report because of the fee structure. We were at a number, a committed number, and we've passed that committed number. And if we're going to continue, we'd have to continue past that committed number. So it would be up to council for that. I can't make that decision.
Now, if this is okay, again, to me, so the original motion, if I understand, is that we were going to get a report coming to council. This is not a report. So whatever you want to tie it or characterize it, we don't receive reports from council which are incomplete. We receive it when we have the fulsome of the appendices, the fulsome of the documentation. This is not a complete report. So, so my understanding, and again, Peter, please remind me, I thought, so the direction was a review and a public report, and I believe there's a consequent motion that a report would be done publicly, and we'd have the opportunity to ask the investigators questions.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, I can recite the resolution of council from May 18th of this year. It was to receive their report, and that in accordance with Schedule D of the purchasing bylaw and on a sole source basis, the CAO be requested to engage an audit accounting firm to immediately conduct a financial forensic audit of the Brampton U file based on council's consideration of the Brampton U matter at its meeting held on May 18th, as well as other information available to the city for the purpose of the investigation. The councilors Bowman, Fortini, and Dillon be appointed as a steering committee to immediately work with the CAO to scope and steer the financial forensic audit work. That the CAO and/or audit accounting firm be authorized to engage appropriate specialized expertise for required aspects of the financial forensic audit, including a review of the Brampton U related RFP and procurement processes and such other matters as may be required, and that notwithstanding the immediate commencement of the financial forensic audit, the CAO be requested to report back to council on the scope and costs associated with the financial forensic audit, as well as progress reports on the audit process. So that was the initial direction given by council on May 18th.
Okay, and Peter, so subsequent what we've all said, when we had special council meetings for an update, and my understanding that this was supposed to be an update, but it's not a final report. So what do we do in the meantime if what I'm hearing from the CAO is that if the direction is given by council, then we deem this as receipt, which is not a complete report, then Paul, how do we go about then receiving all the other documentation and appendices as part of this report? Because you get a summary, but the summary has no context, it has no documentation, it has nothing. So at the end of the day, this whole exercise, based on what we're doing now, it's pretty evident what's happening. I mean, I don't have to say it so articulately, but it's pretty evident. But at the same time, would I not expect, those supporting documents, or those supporting documents going to be released?
So through you, Mr. Mayor, at this time, this is what the forensic audit company has given us, and they advise us to go further. They require more funds. So, and that's why I'm reporting back to council, because I'm required to report back on the financial piece of this, where the expectation was we had a limit set where we were going to go, and that has exceeded that. And we were just advised of that recently.
Okay, understood. But in the meantime,
Sorry, but Councilman Pierre, there's no audio. I'm getting a lot of texts. All these nobody could hear anything.
Was that a point of order?
Yeah, well.
So second, Councilor Medeiros has the floor, and the clerk has checked the audio is working.
Well, a bunch of texts, Mr. Mayor. Okay.
Okay, Councilor Medeiros.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Mayor. So I think then again, Paul, to our CEO, if we're getting this summary and understanding that no one was prepared to because full expectation was to get a full report, we're ending this in this manner, and what you stated in this summary does not have the appendices or so on. So the information that we have now, do we expect the appendices and everything else to be released that supports this interim report? Because whatever it is, it doesn't have any of the supporting documentation, appendices, etc.
So through you, Mr. Mayor, we can go back to, it'll be the will of council for us to go back to the forensic company, because they are positioned themselves that any further work would require further money.
But it's the work, through you, Mr. Mayor, it's the work that they've already completed. So for them to make statements such as, regarding a counselor, or make other statements regarding process, regarding, expenditures, all that. So the information and the work that they already did, they would have had supporting documents to bring this report. So what I'm saying is, when are these supporting documents going to be released as part of this summary to have a fulsome report? Because that would make this report complete. Right now, it's not a report. Right now, it's a summary, and for whatever reason it is. And this is not a report because it doesn't have the substantial documents to support what's here. There's no context. There's no what's it based on. So I understand that we're not going to get the consultants to come in. I understand what's happening. Everything's being, stopped. So based on what we're reading there, based on the conclusions that have come up, there's supporting documentation. And in any report we get at council, any type of report that you get, usually there's appendices to substantiate what recommendation that the staff are putting forth. In this report, in this regards, what you have is just a very short summary on all the work that's been done, on all the money that's been spent. And again, I'm saying, would not part of a complete report, be it, a half report, because in my mind, again, this is not the complete report. The substantiating documents, the appendices, should it be part of any summary that's released. So how do we get, or how would that be released?
So through you, Mr. Mayor, we would have to go back to the forensic audit company and request to release that information pending, not pending, but with their approval. And once again, I will say that this becomes a financial piece, and it's the will of council. My hands are tied on how much I can spend. I need council direction to go, and I'm not being held hostage on this by the forensic company, but their report is the report, and they've given us what they've given us, and saying to continue, they require more finances.
Again, through you, Mr. Mayor, and respectfully, Acting CEO, this is not a report. What this was an update that was supposed to be given, and now you're telling us publicly that this is a report, this is what they gave us. What they've given us is a summary. It's not a report. And the summary should be based on credential and information substantiated by their findings. So there's appendices, there's information that's to be substantiated. That work they already did. How do we get release of those information that supports the summary that they have? So right now, we're just reading what they found. There's no substantiation, there's no citation, there's no anything attached. When are we going to get that information? So that is work we already paid them for. For them to write the words that we're reading today, you're saying that we can't go to them again to be able to just simply say, look, you said this, here is the document that proves it. You said this, here is the document that proved it. There's no work for them to do. It's just to share what they found.
Okay, thank you, Councilor Medeiros. Councilor Fortini?
Well, thank you, Mr. Mayor. I was going to say the same thing. So, to the CEO, I thought when we had our briefing that the report was coming on the 12th, and I asked them, and so did Councilor Bowman, if they would be here and we could ask questions. So, bringing this forward, why did we bring this forward today then? If there's no report, it's just a briefing, really.
We brought it forward as an update today to, as the clerk had mentioned in his reading of the motion passed, that we were to update our status and our financials. We brought it together to do that. It was our anticipation to have somebody from the investigative company here to speak to that, and they turned around and they advised they couldn't be here today. So we lost their attendance. And once again, I go back to this is an update.
Okay, so if it's an update, then we should have a report coming on the 12th, because I remember when our briefing, I asked very clear, can you please come forward? Any counselor needs questions. They said they'll both be here. So if this is just an update, they should be coming back on the 12th with a report, so any counselor can ask questions and get more clarity. We paid them for that.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, you're correct, Councillor Fortini. Okay. The piece here that the investigative companies put on the table is they require more money to do that. And that's why we're back at council.
Okay, so they need more money. So have they found certain things that they need more investigating? And have they found things that I think, people should know if it's right and wrong?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, they advised us that it's their desire to interview 3 more witnesses as to their involvement, that they have not interviewed yet. Two, they haven't made dates with. One, they haven't contacted. And to finish the section 3, the synopsis to section 3. So based on that, and listening to Councilor Pertini, our expectation, and I think we're correct, is the report they're going to deliver will not be too far from what we see today.
And those three are the critical for the final report.
So, Councillor Pertini,
Through the chair, in terms of completion of the report, those 3 interviews would be to complete the totality of all individuals as part of this investigation, and they have to formulate a conclusion on Section 3, as the CAO mentioned, which is specifically on the contract extension that happened on this. So they have not concluded based on the information that they have seen on Section 3, and they have requested those final 3 interviews in order to be able to provide a fulsome report to council and to be prepared to answer any questions from council when they do come to when they do come to you.
So, yeah, and my question is, so those are a key, really, these 3 interviews are really the key final interviews that they need to do the final report. Is that what you said? Is that what it is?
Through the chair, we could go back to the investigators and ask this question to see where they would land on this. But from my conversation with the investigative team is that their preference is to complete this investigation by completing the 3 interviews, to come to council and present their final findings and answer any questions that council may have.
Well, we went this far. I think, we got to continue it. This has been going on for a long time, and everyone deserves answers. And I think, we should continue this. We can't just stop halfway or 3/4 of the way and just throw money out the door and nobody's here. So, media's been looking, we've been asking, everyone asking about this thing. It's been over a year, and, to not spend a little bit more money to find out, that doesn't work. If we got to find out the final details in the final report, it should carry on. We don't, if we look at the cost due to criminals or whatever happens and stuff like that, it doesn't make no sense. So I think we should continue this and finish it off. And this way everyone gets a clarity on the report. And the whole idea was supposed to come on the 12th. And that's when we did our briefing with Councillor Bowman. And I asked very clearly, you guys bring in the report on the 12th? And councillors allowed to ask questions. They said, yes, they'll be here to ask all the questions in the final report. So this is only really a briefing, really what we're doing. And going back to Pierre, I know you read that with the motion, what we did. Can council just stop this investigation now, if they want?
So through you, Mr. Mayor, technically council can stop an investigation if they so choose. It appears to me from the intent of council's resolution from May is there was going to be progress reports, of which this appears to be one. And even though it's council's decision at the end of the day, I would be remiss if I do not remind members of council that at the same meeting that they authorized this review, there was a letter from the Ombudsman of Ontario commenting on the investigation that occurred in 2021 and was reminding council that if they do investigations, independent investigations, there are 3 things to keep in mind. Have a clear purpose and mandate, make sure there's real and perceived independence in the review, and ensure there's time and resources needed to complete the review. That was the advice of the Ombudsman that was provided to council.
So really, we have to provide the resources and finish it off. Okay, so I think we should just finish it off because, it's been a lot of stuff said here and there, and I think we have to get to the bottom of this and be more transparent and accountable to our residents, where we did and where we spent the money. And so I like to continue this right through. If we need a little bit more, everyone has the right to know what really happened here. Thank you.
Councillor Bowman for a second time.
Thank you very much through you, Mr. Mayor. Thank you very much through you, Mr. Mayor. Mr. Clerk, are we in lame duck now? And what are the rules if we are?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, yes, council is in, it's commonly referred to as lame duck, but it's legally referred to as in a restricted acts period, and that occurs when less than 75% of the incumbent council is certified with their nominations for the municipal election in the fall. There are only 8 members of the 11-member council that have been certified for nominations, and therein that's less than 75%. The municipal acts, as the restricted acts, speak to the inability for the council to remove an officer of the corporation, to hire or terminate city staff, if that's something that the council is empowered to do, to spend money greater than $50,000 unless it's a part of an approved budget, and to purchase or sell property that has a value greater than $50,000 unless it's part of an approved budget. This council, in May of this year, delegated responsibility to the CAO in terms of the last 2 components, which is the $50,000 expenditure outside an approved budget and disposition of land outside an approved budget with the $50,000 value or greater. So those responsibilities now rest with the CAO, with the requirement that the CAO reports back to council in the new term on any execution of that delegated authority.
Okay, so that being said, and I don't want to talk about things that we discussed in closed, but in total now, are we not looking at $50,000 plus to complete this? Above the budget that we agreed to.
Through the chair, the final number provided by the consultant would be around, to complete the report, it would be 150. At the moment, the current expenses are just slightly below that.
Okay, so theoretically, because we're in lame duck, this should be a decision that the CAO makes, since it's a $50,000 decision. Council should not be voting on this. Oh, we lost. That's okay, sorry. So I'm just saying, if this budget is $50,000 plus, then this is not a decision council can make not to spend any more money on this. This is a decision the CAO would be making to spend the rest of the money to complete the investigation.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, my understanding, unless I'd have to do some research, there is no council-approved budget for this that was in a council resolution. I think council authorized the review, and that's what I quoted earlier in terms of the directive resolution of council for the CEO to go off and do the review and report back on scope and costs. But there is no council resolution saying that there is a ceiling. I think there was some advisories provided early on. I believe I recall a previous verbal update of what the expectation was on costs. But I'm not aware that there's a council resolution that the upset limit or the limit is X or Y or whatever the limit may be. In terms of the expenditures, if it's not within an approved budget, then it would appear, and again, I don't know the details, that it may be something that's within the purview of the CAO.
Okay. How do we go about finding whether for sure this is in the preview of the CAO? Because if I'm adding the numbers up correctly, especially the ones we heard in camera, this is a $50,000 expenditure higher than what we originally had planned or what the CAO had budgeted for. So we don't have any budget for this, so this would be a decision that's left with the CAO, not with council.
Through the chair for clarification, the consultant provided a year-to-date cost of about $110,000 in labor with $33,000 in disbursement fees. They have provided some discounts, but the total anticipated cost would have been about $170,000 without the discount provided by the vendor.
Okay, so in my opinion, and I don't know where this stands legally, I guess we could ask our solicitor, but this is not a decision council should be making as we're lame duck. This is a decision that the CAO should be making whether this continues or not and whether we get the full report Do we have a,
As Chair of Councilor Bowman, I'd say there's $10,000 in additional expenses according to the CEO, and saying not to spend money has no relevancy to lame duck. It would be to say if we wanted to spend $100,000, we're saying not spend.
well, that's my point, Mr. Mayor. We're already over the $100,000 budget. They are looking for us to pay them. Therefore, for us to pay out what's required and get the report back that we bought through an RFP or through a purchase order, whatever you want to call it, that's going to be an additional $50,000 to get that final report and all the information that's going to provide clarity to this council and provide clarity to the public on exactly what happened on this file. So, Diana, do you have any comment on that? Sorry to put you on the spot.
Through the chair to Councilor Bowman, to the extent that there is an issue of spending money in excess of $50,000, that would not be something that could go to council right now. It would be something that could go to the CAO. I don't believe there is a limitation on the resolution that was passed in May, so that really wouldn't be an issue. I think what we're hearing is that council wants to cease the work.
Okay. So what is the way around this? We need this report. The report has been talked about for a year and a half. All indications we've got from this interim paper telling us that we need full disclosure to continue on phase 2 and phase 3. We've got some pretty damning evidence in this report that says we need to do this. When questions are being asked, did this RFP happen within the guidelines, and the answer is no, that's a big red flag, a big red flag. And, we observed through technical proposals that scores were altered after the original scoring was done. That's a huge red flag. Were there potential conflicts of interest for city staff? Yes, there were. But we are still working on that for phases 2 and 3. We can't stop this at this stage right now. We can't. If we have nothing to hide as a council, then we need to just give the CAO, he's already got the authority, let him make the decision to carry on with this and get this report back. If the report shows nothing, fantastic. Everything was done correctly. But if it's an indication like this document is showing us now, we've got some real issues here, and if we don't follow through with this, I'm saying we are trying to cover this up. There is something here we are trying to cover up, and I will not be part of any cover-up for this thing. So I say it's up to the decision of the CAO whether he spends another $50,000 or not. And I don't know how that's ruled on, Mr. Clerk.
Okay. Councilor Bowman, is that it?
That's it.
Okay. Any other speakers on your? No. Okay. Anyone opposed to this motion?
I'm on the board. Sorry, I'm on the board.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, Councilor Pelletier was on the board first, but I see Councilor Medeiros has added to speak again.
Okay, Councilor Medeiros for a second time.
Yeah, thank you very much. Through you, Mr. Mayor. So again, it seems pretty clear that during a lame duck session, so the decision's really with you, the CAO, acting CAO, and I would expect in the direction that was given, I would expect a fulsome report that comes back to council. And really, it is disappointing because acting CAO, you knew fully well we're in a lame duck session. That is your decision to make, only your decision to do what's right to protect this corporation. And I'm hoping that you will follow through with your responsibility, which is given to you. And I'm finding this whole sort of circus, this whole way of trying to just sweep this under the rug, finish this up, let's go away. This is not done properly. There's 3 interviews to be done. The CEO has the authority. We don't have the authority, but yet we're just trying to proceed. So, Peter, in terms of the motion per se, and if we're in a lame duck session, it's pretty clear that it's the acting CEO who has authority to determine to spend the money or not. To simply, waive that responsibility and say, well, it's up to council. You can't pick and choose. Right now, if it's a lame duck session, it's with the CEO. It's pretty clear. So I don't know then, how do we proceed? So basically it's a motion, which is not legal, the motion that we're moving. So I understand this is a difficult conversation for everyone there and no one wants to react, but essentially the decision's with the acting CEO. And the direction was given, and we hope that you would proceed to have a fulsome, complete report that come. I would like to move at this time also a motion as an amendment to the motion being put on the board, that that all supporting documentation and appendices be also provided to the public as supporting documentation to, if the motion passes, to this summary. So I would like to add that amendment, Peter Fay.
Is there a seconder?
I'll second that, Mr. Mayor.
Okay. So that could be item 5. We vote on the first 4 and then number 5.
And also, Mr. Mayor, through you, Mr. Mayor, in terms of the vote per se, because we're dealing with pecuniary interest, wouldn't the Councillor Santos be in conflict of voting?
No, there was no conflicts declared.
So she's not declaring a conflict on a report that's about her regarding an RFP. So in this case, there's no conflict.
Correct.
Oh, she hasn't declared a conflict. Okay. Well, I would say she has the opportunity to declare a conflict because clearly there's a conflict. And in final, through you, Mr. Mayor, then Peter Fay, regarding again the decision that lies, that this motion is not a legal motion then, if it's a lame duck. Based on the information that we have, this is not a legal motion.
So through you, Mr. Mayor, so just to clarify, as I mentioned earlier in terms of the restricted acts under the Municipal Act, is the restricted act for council is in making any expenditures or incurring any additional, any other liability which exceeds $50,000. That's not part of the most recent approved budget that was approved by council before nomination day. So that is the authority that has been delegated to the CAO.
So Councilman
Okay,
Garros,
Peter.
if we asked him to spend $50,000 and asked him to continue on this witch hunt, then it would be breaking the lame duck period. By saying not to, you're actually consistent.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Mayor. And I'll just leave the floor. Thank you.
So we have the motions on the floor.
Mr. Mayor, Councillor Fortini's back on for a second time.
Second time or third time?
I have this will be a second time.
Okay, Councillor Fortini.
I'm second or third time. This is important. I thought we're going to stop this now. So everything gets stopped. I thought our residents want accountable and transparent. And here we are. We spent the money and we don't finish something. And meanwhile, nobody will know what the truth is. And when people are all going to go in the media tomorrow and say, well, look what they did. We spent money, nothing came out. How could we go out and say that when the report's not final? That, I just don't get it. I thought, you were the one yourself going back about a month ago, bringing everything has to be in the public, has to be transparent, has to be accountable. And now we're not even finishing something? So we wasted money for no reason, and we don't get a final report. That's what we're asking here. And the public and the media are all on here. And we're saying, it's okay, just bury everything underneath the carpet, like Councilor Bowman said, and don't worry about it. And, we're here for the taxpayers. We should be accountable or transparent and show people we spent this money for this reason. If nothing comes out, that's great. But if something does come out, people have the right to know. And these come from your mouth. Now all of a sudden we're just letting everything slide. 2 or 3 weeks ago, we were not letting anything slide for 60,000. So anyway, I will not support this. I'm going to ask for a recorded vote. And I hope the media and everything will pick it up, how we just swept everything underneath the carpet. Thank you.
Okay, so we have a recorded vote on the first item, 1 to 4, and then the recorded vote on the second item, number 5. Okay, over to the clerk.
So through you, Mr. Mayor, then we will, if a recorded vote is requested, we'll take the recorded vote in reverse order. So it's first on the amendment, which is clause 5. All supporting documents, appendices associated with the draft report be released publicly. Moved by Councilor Madero, seconded by Councilor Vicente. All in favor? Sorry, Councilor Singh is on the board.
Quickly.
The report also revealed some issues from the staff side, the interim report. I'll leave it on you with your background in policing to look at that, particularly when it comes to scores being altered. That's obviously a staff issue. No councillor had anything to do with that, but I think you should take that under advisement to make sure that that's totally inappropriate if it happens.
Okay. Councillor Singh, we are on a vote, but since you hadn't spoken, I thought it was a question. I thought it was a question about the vote, but okay. Oh, back to the clerk.
So a recorded votes request first on clause 5 is shown on the screen. All members, please indicate your vote. Councillor Dillon, who I believe is still absent. The vote is on clause 5 only at this point. The amendment by Councilor Madero, seconded by Councilor Fortini. All in favor or opposed, please indicate. Councilor Dillon appears to be absent at the moment. Councilor Singh?
Number 5.
Oh, no.
That's a no from Councilor Singh. Councilor Fortini? Councilor Fortini, how do you vote? I'll come back to you, Councilor Fortini. Councilor Medeiros?
Yes.
It's a yes. Councilor Bowman?
Yes.
It's a yes. Councilor Paleshi?
Yes, Peter, sorry. Yes.
Okay, I have a no. Councilor Paleshi, a yes. Councilor Fortini. Councilor Willens?
Yes.
It's a yes. Councilor Vicente?
No.
It's a no. Councilor Santos?
No.
It's a no. Councilor Dillon? Is not present. Mayor Brown?
No.
That's a no. The amendment does not carry. The vote is 4-5. The next recorded vote is on clauses 1 to 4 of the motion, which are highlighted on the screen. All members in favor or opposed, please indicate. Councilor Dillon still appears to be absent. Councilor Singh? Yes. That's a yes. Councilor Fortini?
No.
It's a no. Councilor Medeiros?
No.
It's a no. Councilor Bowman?
No.
That's a no. Councilor Paleshi?
Yes.
That's a yes. Councilor Willens?
No.
It's a no. Councilor Vicente?
Yes.
That's a yes. Councilor Santos?
Yes.
It's a yes. Mayor Brown?
Yes.
It's a yes. Clauses 1 to 4 carry by a vote of 5-4.
Should we do the next motion now? Yes. Yeah. So the next motion is to have a policy similar to other municipalities, and that is if someone presents false information where it is clear that they instigated cost on the city that is false, misinformation, false allegations, that they can share a burden of the cost. We just get a staff report back on how other municipalities handle it. I know there was one case earlier today or earlier this year where a recording showed that a false allegation was made that was cleared to be a lie. And so I think it's important that we find out what tools we have if someone intentionally tries to waste the resources of the municipality. No action here, just simply a staff report to know what tools we can have, like other municipalities. Councillor Bowman.
Thank you. Thank you very much through you, Mr. Mayor. I don't know what, from this I can't see what we're asking for. Who is the judge on whether this is whether somebody has misinformed the city? Who would make that determination as to whether something that was said is inaccurate or not? Who makes that decision?
The clerk would find out how it's done elsewhere. It would likely be the clerk.
It's coming back from the clerk.
Sorry, before we just proceed, we need a seconder for this motion before it's a proper motion.
Councillor Santos.
Councillor Bowman will second it. It's a staff report. That's fine. You can vote any way you want, but does this also include press conferences?
This is cost on this, yeah,
So if someone were to give false information in a press conference, that would be included in this?
Peter would look at what other municipalities do with this.
Peter, can you add that to the motion then, please?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, if that's moved as an amendment, it's either can be accepted as a friendly amendment or can be moved with the seconder as an amendment to the motion.
You want to second that then?
What, the amendment?
Yeah, like I'll add it as a friendly, you second the motion.
No, Councillor Santos has already seconded. I'm fine with it.
You can second it,
Sure.
Council.
Okay, I'll take that as a friendly and Councillor Bowman is the seconder. So it'll be intentionally misinformed city investigations and or press releases, press conferences. It's reasonable. Okay. No. Okay, anyone opposed? No.
I'm on the board, Mr. Mayor.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm just going to ask quickly. You said other municipalities use it. Which other municipalities are using this?
I understand Toronto is one of them.
Yeah. Also, that'll be in the report from the clerk?
Yep. Just a staff
okay,
report.
good.
There's no action being taken,
Yeah.
Councillor Ferdini.
Yeah, great. Thank you.
Any other one on the board? Okay. Anyone, record a vote? Okay, record a vote.
Recorded vote has been requested on the mayor's motion as shown on the screen with the friendly amendment through Councillor Bowman. All in favor or opposed, please indicate. Councillor Dillon still appears to be absent. Councillor Singh? Yes. That's a yes. Councillor Fortini?
Yes.
That's a yes. Councillor Medeiros?
Yes.
That's a yes. Councillor Bowman?
Yes.
That's a yes. Councillor Paleshi? It's a yes. Councillor Willens?
Yes.
It's a yes. Councillor Vasante?
Yes.
It's a yes. Councillor Santos?
Yes.
It's a yes. Mayor Brown?
Yes.
It's a yes. That motion carries unanimously, 9-0.
Okay. This takes us to our next item, which is item 5.3, status of council-directed RFP reviews. Okay.
So, sorry, I missed that, Mr. Mayor.
So this is the status of the council-directed RFP review, so I've got a motion for that as well.
So I can speak to that, Mr. Mayor. We have been talking to the investigator in the matter, and he still requires time. We've asked him to hasten his pace, and he has other extraneous circumstances that have slowed him down. It would be expected sometime in September. I can't qualify the date because he hasn't given us a confirmed date yet, but he is working towards their conclusions.
Okay. So I'm going to put a motion on the floor that the council-directed RFP reviews be referred to the Integrity Commissioner and no further work be undertaken.
So through you, Mr. Mayor, they may be matters that are not within the purview of the Integrity Commissioner. The Integrity Commissioner's purview is member of council behavior, not other corporate business.
So let's put the wording on the screen. The RFP reviews be referred to the Integrity Commissioner. And the point is, council should not be engaged in these type of investigations. It is largely political, and it shouldn't be. And refer it to the Integrity Commissioner to determine whether it merits investigation.
And through you, Mr. Mayor, just to be clear, as members of council know, the Integrity Commissioner's purview and mandate is paused because we are in the election period as of nomination day. This really would not have any force and effect. After voting day, the Municipal Act says within 6 weeks after voting day, a matter can be referred to the Integrity Commissioner to pick up an item or not. So I just want council to be aware of that. There is no mandate for the Integrity Commissioner to either take complaints from the public or anybody else or really receive direction through council at this point because we're in an election period.
But we have sent, they could pick it up if they wanted to after.
They would not pick it up after unless within 6 weeks after voting day, a complainant, a member of council, a party writes to the Integrity Commissioner to lodge a complaint, request an investigation.
But couldn't this be that request?
If that's the will of council, is to provide it to the Integrity Commissioner within the 6 week period after voting day?
Yeah, you add that language in. Okay, moved by myself, seconded by Councillor Fasante. Okay, Councillor Bowman.
Thank you very much, Mr. Mayor. I don't even know where to start with this one. So what we're saying is, first of all, how much have we spent on the RFP investigation?
Through the chair, at the moment, it's 50,000 plus tax.
50,000 plus tax. Okay, so we're just going to throw 50,000 plus tax away, hold this investigation off and any of its findings that might already be determined until after the election. And so any wrongdoing that might have been found during any of these RFP investigations, we're just saying, don't even worry about it. Not important. Let's hold the election first. Let's vote everybody back in, and then we'll determine, or we'll send it to a Integrity Commissioner who may not even be able to look at them because they don't involve actions from members of council. We've got the world's, or Canada's, I shouldn't say the world's because someone will probably challenge me on that. We've got Canada's leading expert on procurement who's doing these RFPs. And we are saying to him, no, we'd rather an Integrity Commissioner look at them. This is absurd. This is absurd. This is a 100% total cover-up by this council of actions that have been taken during this term of office. I don't even know what to say. This is so bad that I don't even know why this was brought forward. This is a 100% attempt to silence everything that's gone on in this council and any of the findings that our special investigators have found, aside from the waste of money that have already gone into these investigations. And to put something like this forward from this council is an indication from this council, if this is agreed to, that we are covering everything up. We do not want the public to know anything about what happened in this council. And if there was anything wrong, we're sweeping it under the carpet, move on, nothing to see here. And I will not support that, even though I'm not running for election again, so I have nothing to win, nothing to lose here, but I will not be part of this. I'm not even going to be part of this vote. This is absurd. I am out of this council meeting. Thank you.
Any other speakers on the board? Okay. All those in favor of the motion? Anyone opposed? Hearing none, the motion carries.
Opposed.
Okay. That takes us to our next item, which is item 5.5, the Brampton Celebrity Hockey Classic in support of Easter Seals, Thursday, November 3rd, 2022.
The next item is 5.4 regarding the...
Oh, Gita Park, maybe, sorry, I apologize. So we've been working on this project. There is a location that was determined for a park that had no affiliation. And I put the motion on the floor. This was selected in conjunction with local mandates. And it is the New City Park administratively identified as Troyers Park, adjacent to Wood Green Way in Ward 6, be named Gita Park. Seconded by Councillor Paleshi. Okay, sorry, all of council, second? We don't need a recorded vote. Okay, sure. All those in favor? Oh, sorry, Councillor the Clerk, yeah.
A recorded vote's been requested on the motion for item 5.4. All in favor or opposed, please indicate. Councillor Dillon is still absent. Councillor Singh? It's a yes. Councillor Fortini?
Yes. Yes.
That's a yes. Councillor Medeiros?
Yes.
It's a yes. Councillor Bowman has left. Councillor Paleshi? Yes. It's a yes. Councillor Willens?
Here.
It's a yes. Councillor Vasante?
Yes.
It's a yes. Councillor Santos?
Yes.
It's a yes. Mayor Brown?
Yes.
It's a yes. That carries unanimously 8-0 with 2 absences.
Okay, that takes us to the next item, which is the Brampton Celebrity Hockey Class in support of Easter Seals. They've done this the last few years at Susan Fennell. They do it during the day when no one else is using it. So the last 2 times they've done it, we've waived the facility fee. And everything goes to local kids who are Easter Seals recipients. I'd like to put that on the floor, seconded by Councillor Paleshi. Anyone opposed? Hearing none, the motion carries. This takes us to item 5.6. The Brampton team in the senior games, 55 plus, won bronze this morning in British Columbia. I got introduced to the team from Councillor Fortini, who their goalie is one of his constituents. They made a request to Councillor Fortini and myself that they used ice at a facility this summer over a 2-week period preparing for the games. It came to about $2,000, is it? $2,265, and they asked if we could waive it to be supportive of this Brampton seniors team. Anyone opposed? Hearing none, the motion carries. The next item is St. Elias the Prophet Ukrainian Catholic Church. They've made a request for assistance. We welcomed 80 Ukrainian refugees, which is beautiful to our city. I had a chance to address them earlier this week, and they had a request that we could help. And the request was near end-of-life laptops. There's 8 students that require them, and there's a request for 2 families for bike passes within the city's new bike hub. So we have a motion here on the floor that would assist them. And this is being run by Irene, who many may know as Father Roman's wife at St. Elias. And I would note this is a little bit special for Brampton because the daughter of Irene and Father Roman at St. Elias Ukrainian Church is the Canadian ambassador to Ukraine. So we've got a very special connection with Canada's efforts of relief in Ukraine. They already have that. Anyone opposed? Seeing none, the motion carries. This takes us to Item 5.8, ceremonial street naming of Elizabeth Street North to Cheryl's Place. Cheryl Lynn Case was a beloved dentist in town that sponsored the programming at the Rose Theater. Very involved in the local Afro-Caribbean community in our city, a role model, a mentor, and she sadly passed away during COVID. We lost a giant in our community, and the husband asked, given they own a majority of the properties on this one block, if it could be renamed Cheryl's Place. And the ward councillors have agreed to move that motion, which is Councillor Santos and Councillor Vasante. Anyone opposed to the motion? Hearing none, the motion carries. The next item is Moncton Circle Park update. I've been working on this item with Councillor Medeiros. There is, here's the language, and I'm going to stick to the language that the lawyer designed. The staff be directed to negotiate with the property owner of the vacant school block lands in Moncton Circle neighborhood with the Commissioner of Community Service authorized to execute on behalf of the city all necessary use agreements, including appropriate liability waivers, property signage installation in the form acceptable to the city solicitor. Moved by myself, second by Councilor Medeiros. Anyone opposed? Hearing none, motion carries. Planning and Development Committee minutes, which were held on August 26th. The committee minutes are here for council approval. I will now pass the chair to Councilor Medeiros to lead council in consideration of the minutes.
Members of committee, you have before you the minutes for the Planning and Development Committee meeting. Are there any questions or comments? I see none. Back to you, Mr. Mayor.
Okay, motion. Okay, Councilor Santos.
Thank you, through you, Chair. Is it possible for us to approve the recommendation number 2 there in principle, but then reserve further discussions about it at council? Is that a possibility?
What item is that?
Recommendation PDC 160 2022. Is that the one? And 171 2022.
Sorry, through you, Mr. Mayor, Councillor Santos, which recommendation? In general, I would advise against approving in principle, particularly with planning-related matters, as there needs to be a clear statement of what the municipality's position is on something.
Okay, that's fine. Thank you.
Okay, motion moved by Councilor Medeiros, seconded by Councilor Vasante, or Councilor Santos. Anyone opposed? Hearing none, the motion carries. This takes us to the council meeting calendar. And now that we've wrapped up this items, I think there's a motion that the special council meeting scheduled for September 12th and 18th be canceled.
So through you, Mr. Mayor, these were 2 special council meetings called by a majority, through a petition by a majority of the members of council back on June 8th, I believe it was. And so the motion is, and it needs a mover and seconder to cancel those meetings. My advice will be, because they were called by a petition by a majority of the members, that there needs to be a clear majority, i.e. 6 members of council voting in favor to do that.
Okay. Moved by Councilor Palashi, seconded by Councilor Santos. All those in favor?
I see Councilor Medeiros.
Recorded vote, Mr. Mayor, please.
Okay. Recorded vote.
Recorded vote's been requested on item 5.11. The motion, my apologies, sorry, who moved that?
Councilor Palashi, seconded by Councilor Santos.
Okay, thank you. The recorded vote's been requested on the motion that's shown on the screen. All those in favor or opposed, please indicate. Councilor Dillon is absent. Councilor Singh? It's a yes. Councilor Fortini?
No.
It's a no. Councilor Medeiros?
No.
It's a no. Councilor Bowman is absent. Councilor Palashi? That's a yes. Councilor Willens?
No.
That's a no. Councilor Vasante?
Yes.
That's a yes. Councilor Santos?
Yes.
That's a yes. Mayor Brown?
Yes.
That's a yes. So the vote is 5-3. It carries, but as I advised, These meetings were properly called by a petition from a majority of members of council in accordance with the Municipal Act and the Procedure Bylaw. So irrespective of council's resolution, unless I have a clear 6 members of council that wish to have the meetings canceled, I will be obliged to proceed to schedule these meetings. Because a minority of council cannot be used to undermine the majority of council that has spoken on something. If I do have a majority vote from the members of council, a clear majority of 6, then it would make sense. Otherwise, it would appear to be contrary to the intent of the Municipal Act.
So, if there's 6 members of council that want these meetings, then, you know, I would call them. But I would rule that this is the clear indication of council. I'd ask, and Diana?
I think
you want to weigh in, you said?
Yeah, no, I think through the chair, to the chair. I think what Peter is saying is that there was 6 council members who properly called it, and the procedure bylaw permits 6 council members to call a special meeting, in addition to, obviously, the mayor on his own could call a special meeting. In this case, there were 6 council members who called the special meeting. So what Peter is saying is that you would need 6 council members to undo that. And so 5 council members voting to cancel it doesn't override the 6 that rightfully called the special meeting.
So
that's what Peter has stated.
I thought it's majority of council, not.
The procedure bylaw says 6, I believe.
It says a majority, through you, Mr. Mayor, it says a majority of council.
So
Yes.
maybe, Peter, could I just, so we're not in an impasse, ask you to do some additional research? And then if we need to get a petition of 6, then we'll get a petition of 6. But I believe a council motion would
No.
supersede.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, that's not, irrespective of council motion, there is the Municipal Act that says a special meeting can be called by either the head of council or a petition from a majority of the members of council. A proper petition was filed, and so these meetings were scheduled. The only way to undo that, in my view, would be that either I have a petition from a majority of the 11 members of council to cancel the meeting, or the meeting doesn't proceed as scheduled for a lack of quorum. Otherwise, to do so would enable a council, for example, in this case, where there is not a clear majority present, there's a majority to pass votes to undermine the will of the majority of council. Even though it carried on a 5 vote, 5 is not a majority of the entire council.
Okay.
So irrespective of council's decision on this, I have to go by what's on the Municipal Act, and unless I receive a petition or, as I mentioned at the outset, a majority of council, which is 6 votes or more, to cancel the meeting, I will proceed to schedule the meeting. Whether members show up or not, I'll leave that to the members.
Okay, Councillor Flushing.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Mr. Chair, through you, Mr. Mayor, sorry, through you to the clerk. Does the Municipal Act state in terms of what a majority of council can do for the schedulings of meetings?
Through you, it does not speak to that specifically. It says council shall have a procedure bylaw and council can define its procedures, but the Municipal Act does have a very clear provision that says special meetings can be called in 2 occasions, as I set out, by the head of council or by a petition from the majority of the members of council.
And if that petition by the majority members of council is no longer a majority, what kind of relevance does it have?
It still has full relevance because there was a proper majority at the time that the meeting was called. So it was a proper petition meeting.
So in terms of then, if this council was to set a schedule of council meetings for the next term, and the majority of this council was coming back in the next term, would that motion still stand and be granted?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, that's a different scenario because council does set its meeting schedule, but the Municipal Act, as I've said, is very clear in terms of the ability for a council, if it warrants, to call a special meeting, and it's under 2 circumstances, either by the head of council or by a petition from the majority of the members of council.
Okay, and does the Municipal Act share at all or explain if if a member of council is no longer a council member?
It does not, it's silent on that point, but it was a properly petitioned special meeting. These two meetings were
Yep,
two
for
of
sure.
7 meetings.
I'm just asking if maybe there's something in the future we need to request of the province to add to the municipal act, which talks about member of council leaving council.
Okay.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Okay, thank you. So the motion carried, and we have the clerk's interpretation. This takes us to the,
Sorry. Can we get clarification? I didn't get that point. What's carries?
the clerk says it requires 6 members, so it would require members to, we will not have quorum at that meeting, but the clerk cannot officially cancel it unless he gets the email from 6 members of council.
But you could cancel the regular council meeting, right? Mr. Clerk, the mayor?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, to council, yes, a regular council meeting can be canceled by the head of council, the mayor in this case. Yes, absolutely.
So, to the mayor, why are we canceling these meetings?
Because we've already dealt, Councilor Vertini, with all the items on the agenda for those meetings, but if you, but you said that you don't want them
Okay.
canceled, so, we've taken the vote, so
Okay.
if you change your mind, you can email the clerk.
Okay.
Our next item is staff report, request for full-time labor and employment lawyer, staff complement recommendation. Council item was originally deferred from city council meeting of August 10th. Councilor Palesh, you want to speak to this?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Mayor. And I did go through I called the original report, and I did go through this one. Let me get off my closed session agenda. But what I don't see is the position. I don't see where it states that the position will be reporting directly to HR. And if I could just add that into, because that's what my understanding was from HR and from the city manager's office, that it would be changed to reflect that. And if we could add that into the recommendations, I'm happy to move it.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, Councillor Pleshy, you're absolutely correct. It was inaccurate in the report that we resubmitted. It should be that the labor lawyer, the lawyer in HR would report to the HR director. And our report was inaccurate.
We can add that into the recommendations, Peter. I'm happy to move that.
So through you, Mr. Mayor, yes, this is the original report that was originally at the August 10th meeting, which has the staff recommendations which are cited here. We are now in a restricted acts period. So as I understand this report is proposing to add a new lawyer to the city complement at a price tag of approximately over the $50,000. And as I understand it, unless someone can clarify, that is beyond the approved budget.
This is the request from staff, though.
Yes. It's irregardless. The Municipal Act is clear that any expenditure above $50,000 or any incurrence of liability by the council in a restricted acts period is prohibited. However, that responsibility has been delegated to the CAO. So the CAO can act, and my advice would be that the CAO can act appropriately, and perhaps council can just receive the report.
Does that mean
The only motion that I have forward, if I still have the floor, Mr. Mayor, is that if the CAO chooses to hire a lawyer for human resources, that lawyer report directly to HR. No money attached to it, just a reporting function. That's my motion, Mr. Clerk.
Okay. Anyone opposed to the motion?
So we need a second.
Second by Councilor Santos. Anyone opposed? Seeing none, motion carries.
I need to get this down.
Just write it up, yeah.
Is that the intent, Councilor?
A lawyer for, can you grab a labor and employment lawyer?
Maybe it's better to say decides to hire the requested employment lawyer, doesn't find them in the future, the requested employment lawyer. I think this is not a council request, it's a legal request. Okay. Want me to take the vote again, Peter?
Yes, please.
Okay. Anyone opposed? Hearing none, motion carries. Public question period. Are there any public questions?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, I don't see any members of the public in the audience. I'm just going to check, just bear with me, in the clerk's inbox. And I do not see any questions.
Okay. So, bylaws. We have a motion moved by Councillor Santos, seconded by Councillor Singh to approve the bylaws. Is there anyone opposed to this motion? Otherwise, your vote will count in the affirmative. Seeing none, the motion carries. We've already dealt with closed session. So this takes us to the confirming bylaw. I have a motion moved by Councillor Singh, seconded by Councillor Fertini to approve the confirming bylaw to confirm the proceedings and decisions of this meeting. Anyone opposed to this motion? Hearing none, the motion carries. Our next item of business is adjournment. Our next scheduled meeting is September 14th, 2022, regular meeting. I have a motion moved by Councillor Santos, seconded by Councillor Medeiros to adjourn today's meeting. Is there anyone opposed to this motion? Hearing none, the motion carries.